الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين قال الله تعالى في التنزيل العزيز بعد نقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون وقال يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما وقال سبحانه وتعالى في سورة البقرة ولا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل وتدلوا بها إلى الحكام لتأكلوا فريقا من أموال الناس بالإثم وأنتم تعلمون. Before I begin, if I could just request everybody to fill in the gaps as they're coming into the corners, because we are, alhamdulillah, expecting a large crowd and some of the people end up then sitting or standing outside. So kindly fill in the gaps when you see them. Jazakumullahu khairan. And this should be something we should do irrespective of which Jumu'ah we come for. The closer you are to the khatib and the front, the better it is. So please do that. Jazakumullahu khairan. Today, I want to share with you something from the Quran, from Surah number 2, Ayah 188. Surah Baqarah, Ayah 188. This is, the translation of this Ayah is very beautiful and very powerful. The meaning, of this Ayah is very powerful and very beautiful. But also, just as amazing is where is this Ayah found sequentially in the Quran. Like, what is the topic that precedes it? What comes before it is just as interesting. In fact, maybe even more interesting as to what the content of the ayah itself is. The ayah is translated as follows. Do not consume your property wrongfully, nor use it to bribe judges, intending sinfully and knowingly to consume parts of other people's property. This is a general translation. Let me give you a bit more of a what's called a muffum of the ayah, the understanding of the ayah. Firstly, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ. Don't rip each other off. أَكْلُ الْمَالِ بِالْبَاطِلِ. This is a Quranic expression. It's an expression that comes in the Quran again and again. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu la ta'kulu amwalakum bainakum bil batil, in Surah Nisa, for example. Same expression, different places. To consume property or to rip someone off, more precisely, without it being equitable, without it being just, something that's a type of an exploitation. The Quran calls that consumption of someone else's property bil batil, with falsehood, and that is completely unacceptable in Islam. It is one of the things that is outright banned in the Quran and the Sunnah. But what's amazing is how Allah talks about this. He says, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ. Don't consume each other's property wrongfully. You all, the pronoun here is kum. The pronoun here in the Arabic is kum, which is you all. And that's why if you read the translation would say, don't consume your property wrongfully. What it actually is, this is what's lost in the translation, unfortunately. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, don't rip someone else off. Don't rip off your fellow Muslim brother or sister. Because if you rip off your fellow Muslim brother or sister, it's as if you have ripped off yourself. Don't cheat your fellow Muslim brother or sister. Because if you cheat them, it's as if you have cheated yourself. That is the implication. This is the thing, this is from in Arabic, this is called at-ta'bir al-Qur'ani, the Quranic expression. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses certain expressions to convey a larger meaning just by implying it. This is one of those instances where he's saying, don't cheat other people, because if you cheat other people, it's as if you have cheated yourself. You cross that line once, someone will cross it for you or cross it against you. This is a very powerful idea in Islam, that when we do something that involves two parties, a transaction that involves two parties, if you feel that you have cheated the other person, you don't win. You've lost as well. You have lost just like they have lost. How did you lose? Because you have violated the sanctity and the trust that is there when you make a transaction. This is the most fundamental understanding of this ayah. Don't rip each other off, and don't think you're so smart when you get away with it. Don't think like that. I had a car, not recently, a while ago, I had a truck hit my car in the parking lot, and the company said, okay, you know what, we'll reimburse you for damages. I had an old car. I still have an old car, but back then it was an older car, and I went to my mechanic. Okay, and my mechanic, brother Muhammad, mashallah, not from London, this is another brother Muhammad, and he looked at it, he's like, oh brother, I'll fix this for you, it'll cost $200, no worries, inshallah. I said, great, can I get an invoice, because I want to give it to the trucking company, they'll reimburse me. As soon as I said that, he's like, hey, do you want new tires? Do you also want new tires? Do you want, some new windshield wipers or something? Adding on stuff, this is cheating. This is cheating. Unacceptable in Islam to do this. Unethical in all places, in all times. Ibn Ashur says, when Allah says, وَمَعْنَا أَكْلُهَا بِالْبَاطِلِ أَكْلُهَا بِدُونْ وَجْهِ وَهَذَا الْأَكْلُ مُرَتَّبِ. He said there is, هَذَا الْأَكْلُ, عَلَى مَرَاتِبِ. He says that ripping people off, there's like levels to it. Level number 1 is ما علمه جميع السامعين مما هو صريح في كونه باطلا كالغصب والسرقة والحيلة. He says number 1 level of exploitation and cheating is what everybody agrees is cheating and exploitation. You don't need a Quran and Sunnah to tell you. It's what they say, معلوم من الدين بالضرورة. It's known axiomatically, just by default you understand cheating and stealing or tricking someone. All of this is haram. You don't need evidence for that. It's so obvious. And that's the first level. Unfortunately for us, we're stuck at this first level. Because if I was to tell this brother that this is wrong, you can't do this, just bill me for what you're doing, he would say, well, what's wrong with that? This person, this is a trucking company. They're going to invoice it. It doesn't matter how they invoice it. It doesn't matter how they report it in their books. What matters is you did something unethical. And that is unacceptable across the board. There is no justification of it. That's point number 1 of the ayah. A very straightforward idea, but a very deep idea, which is don't cheat, don't exploit, don't rip people off, particularly when you are doing business with people. If you think you did that and you won, you did not win, you ended up losing yourself. The second thing on the ayah is وَتُدْلُوا بِهَا إِلَى الْحُكَّامِ. A very fascinating statement. لِتَأْكُلُوا فَرِيقًا مِنْ أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ بِالْإِثْمِ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Don't use money to bribe hukam, those with authority, intending to consume other people's property knowingly and sinfully. Okay, this is an interesting thing. Ibn Ashur rahimahullah, the great mufassir, says, he says, عَطْفٌ عَلَى تَأْكُلُ. This whole sentence is joined to the previous sentence. Okay, and he says, أي لا تدلوا بها إلى الحكام لتتوسلوا بذلك إلى أكل المال بالباطل. وخص هذه السورة بالنهي بعد ذكر ما يشملها وهو أكل الأموال بالباطل لأن هذه شديدة الشناعة جامعة لمحرمات كثيرة وللدلالة على أن معطي الرشوة آثم مع أنه لم يأكل مالا بل آكله غيره. Allahu Akbar. Ibn Ashur is very, very deep. He says, look at this thing. This is a subset of ripping and cheating people. Bribing authorities is also completely unacceptable. And it is included in the initial statement of Allah, don't cheat people, don't rip people off, don't exploit, don't take people's money wrongfully. It's included already. And this is in Usul al-Fiqh, they say this is atful khas ala al-am. You take a subset and you talk and you highlight it specifically after you made a general statement. It's like I said, all the Muslims are here and, Muhammad, for example, right? Muhammad is included in the first statement, but I'm trying to highlight him specifically. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing here as well. He's trying to highlight this one specifically. Why this particular aspect specifically? It's interesting because the one who gives the bribe does not actually get any immediate benefit, does not immediately get something right away. But what he's doing by giving bribes is he's rigging the system. He's rigging the system in his favor. And then downstream he will take all types of benefits. And the most worrying of it is when the rigging of the system enables the powerful to exploit the powerless, for the privileged to exploit the underprivileged, for the people who are in a position of strength to exploit the people in a position of weakness. That's what this does. When the system is rigged by the powerful, they can concentrate power and money even more so. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlights this particular aspect, because it's one of the worst ways to cheat. You are literally cheating the system. For those of us who lived in a Muslim country, you know this 100%. You know how terrible this is. How terrible the consequences are when the system is rigged. You can't even get a passport. You can't even get a bank account open without bribing somebody. It is so horrible. You feel as a person in that situation powerless and no way you can change anything. It's the most deflating thing. So the Quran highlights that and says, don't let that happen. Don't let that happen. Don't let this become normal, where the powerful people can buy influence and can buy power and just continue to get richer and richer and richer. This is the two main aspects that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlights in this ayah. And these are, as mentioned by the ulama, this is, mahallul ijma'. There is no difference of opinion here. It's not like it's okay to rip off this person because he's not a Muslim. No one has ever said that in the history of Islam. No one has ever said that. It's cheating, it's haram. It's ripping people off, it's haram. It's lying, it's haram. End of story. So it's very clear, and the ayah, the way it is worded, is very, very clear cut. Very, very unambiguous. But the more interesting part, as I mentioned earlier, is where this ayah is found. And I will share that with you inshallah in the next khutbah. أقول ما تسمعون واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa wala amma ba'd. Ayah number 188 of Surah Baqarah is what we were discussing. And the ayah, as I mentioned earlier, speaks very clearly, explicitly, very unambiguously about cheating in business transactions, how it is haram across the board, and to rig the system by bribing, to concentrate more power and authority, haram across the board. This is something the ayah is very clear about. But what's amazing is this ayah is ayah number 188. And ayah number 187, 86, 85, 84, 82, 181. All of these ayat speak about Ramadan. Starting from Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam, concluding with Tilka hududullahi fala taqrabuha. O you who believe fasting has been prescribed upon you, concluding with the ayah before, this is, or these are the limits of God. Don't come close to them. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that in ayah 187, He was talking about suhoor. He was talking about suhoor, and He was talking about intimacy. Suhoor meaning, how long can you eat before you have to stop eating? And that's the break of dawn. حتى يتبين لكم الخيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود من الفجر. The true dawn. Okay? And previously in the same ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about intimacy. أُحِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ. It's permissible for you to be intimate with your spouses at the night of Ramadan, not during the day. And in fact, it is encouraged. هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنْ. They are clothing for you and you're clothing for them. A beautiful image to highlight the nature of what is a beautiful, respectable marriage, where the husband and wife are as close, where the husband and wife are as close as clothes are to the body. That's how close they are to each other. It's a very beautiful image. And there's a lot that can be said about it. But the point here is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is drawing lines in ayah 187. You can't eat after Fajr begins. You cannot be intimate after Fajr begins. You have to eat before, you can be intimate before, but not after. Tilka hududullah, these are the boundaries of Allah. Don't cross them. And then He says, after He says that, He talks about corruption, bribery, cheating, exploitation, etc. in ayah 188. He speaks about fasting, which is a ritual, min al-ibadat. He speaks about business, 188, which is from the mu'amalat, transactions with people. In ayah 187, he speaks about the spiritual benefits of Ramadan. Ayah number 188 speaks about what happens after Ramadan. What happens during the day of Ramadan. If a person is fasting and they're still cheating in business, what good is their fast? If a person fasted the whole of Ramadan and were very particular about the rituals, but then the mu'amalat, the transactions, the dealing with people, the business practices, the ethics never got updated, never changed, had no effect. What good was that Ramadan? That's the implication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making here. Ibn Ashur actually says, he says, عطف جملة على جملة والمناسبة أن قوله تلك حدود الله فلا تقربوها تحذير من الجرأة على مخالفة حكم الصيام بالإفطار غير المأذون فيه وهو ضرب من الأكل الحرام فعطف عليه أكل حرام أكل آخر محرم وهو أكل المال بالباطل. Allahu Akbar. He says Allah spoke about a type of consumption that was haram, which is eating after Fajr. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke connected to it about another type of consumption that is just as haram, which is to rip people off, which is to cheat the system. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning people, right? This is like He is warning people to not have the audacity to cross the lines that Allah has set. And in both cases, He's doing it. This is the larger point of Ramadan. When we have finished Ramadan now and we can look back in retrospect, this is the larger conversation that we should all have with ourselves. Not point a finger at Fulan and say, hey, you didn't change. No, point a finger at myself, me, and ask myself, what happened after Ramadan? What was actually gained after Ramadan? And this is one of the things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlights here as a indicator. Did something change? Look at how you do business. If the way you do business before Ramadan, it was wrong, and you continue to do business in a wrong way after Ramadan, very little was gained. Very similar to what the Prophet ﷺ said when he said, "Man lam yada' qawla az-zur wal 'amala bihi falaysa lillahi hajatun an yatruka ta'amahu wa sharabah." The person who continues to say evil and say things that are unacceptable and act upon that unacceptable stuff, Allah doesn't need for them to starve themselves in Ramadan. The point is that they've missed the whole purpose of fasting, even if they did the arkan of fasting. Even if they did the pillars of fasting, they missed the actual purpose of fasting. And this is now a question for us, similarly to ask about our Ramadan. Did it actually change our behavior? Did it transform our lives? Not just the spirituality, but actually the mu'amalat, the dealings, the business ethics. Did it change anything there? And that is the question. If you look at our deen never restricts itself to the confines of the masjid. Never ever. The deen is not just, okay, you pray here, you're good here, yalla, go afterwards, be yourself. The deen is always the whole package. The whole life has to be changed and transformed. That's what the deen is. Salih alayhi salam, when he is talking to his people, giving them da'wah to Islam, he tells them about وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُم. Don't cheat people. Don't cheat people. That's part of the deen. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ Surah Mutaffifin in Juz' Amma is an early surah, but speaks about who? الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا لَلنَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. Those who are ripping people off in business and cheating. The deen never restricts itself. The Quran never allows us to restrict the deen to just the rituals. It's always about everything. Your whole life has to be transformed, including the spirituality. If you look at Salah, Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Salah is meant to prevent us. It literally stops us from doing things that are evil and immoral. Tanha. As-salatu tanha. That's what it's supposed. It literally is stopping you. So the ritual makes you a better person outside of the ritual. The ritual makes you a more ethical person when it comes to salah. Similarly for fasting. The ritual of fasting is supposed to make us better people after the fasting is done, after Ramadan is done. This is always the case. And this is consistently the message you will find in the Quran. If you read the Quran and you ponder over it, that is the conclusion you will come away with without a shadow of a doubt. It is that our deen emphasizes our rituals as a way for us to become better people outside of them as well. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke about أَتَدْرُونَ مَنِ الْمُفْلِسِ, do you know who is a bankrupt person? Do you know who is someone who is completely bankrupt? The Sahaba said the one who has no money. The Prophet said, no. The bankrupt person is the one who comes on the day of judgment and he brings with him fasting and zakat and salah. وَقَدْ شَتَمَ هَذَا. This person, he rebuked and disparaged this person. وَضَرَبَ هَذَا. He abused this one. أَكَلَ مَالْ هَذَا. He consumed the wealth or wrongfully ripped this person off. So everybody that he hurt in life, everybody he ripped off in business will come on the day of judgment and start to get even with him. How so? By taking his good deeds. By taking his good deeds. By taking the good deeds of his salah, of his fasting, of his zakat, they start taking it. And then he runs out of good deeds. It's finished. There are no good deeds left, but there's still people waiting to get even with him. So then those people come and they drop their sins off on his record. And then finally, when this person is bankrupt of his good, he is tossed in the fire of hell. That's what the Prophet ﷺ called bankruptcy. To link the idea that our deen, there is no separation of rituals and mu'amalat. There is no separation between rituals and ethics. They are one and the same. And Ramadan is an opportunity for us to ponder how much was gained after Ramadan. We ask Allah to give us the tawfiq to understand the Quran and Sunnah and to implement in our lives. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin fil awwalina wa fil akhirin. Wa salli ala Muhammadin fil mala'il a'la ila yawmiddin. Allahumma ahyina ala sunnatihi wa mitna ala millatihi. Wa ahshurna fi zumratihi wa asqina min hawdihi ya rabbal alamin. اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Please make sure the lines are straight. Please fill in any gaps that you find in front of you. After the salah, I have a few announcements to make, so please give me a moment of your time. Jazakumullahu khairan. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت وإلى السماء كيف رفعت وإلى الجبال كيف نصبت وإلى الأرض كيف سطحت فذكر إنما أنت مذكر لست عليهم بمسيطر إلا من تولى وكفر فيعذبه الله العذاب الأكبر إن إلينا إيابهم ثم إن علينا حسابهم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. We have a few announcements, 4 announcements actually in total. Number 1 is fatair are not to be purchased in the hall anymore. The fatair are to be purchased in the gym, inshallah. So if you'd like to purchase them and support the masjid and inshallah enjoy that good food, then please do so at the gym. Number 2 is Salatul Isha from tonight. The prayer in Jama'ah, the congregation, will be 7 minutes after the adhan. We did a small consultation with the musallin on Wednesday, and that's what everybody had suggested, and that's inshallah what we'll be doing. So the salah now will not be 10:30, it will be whatever time it is for adhan plus 7 minutes. This is to keep the delay or the late nature of Isha in mind, inshallah, to allow people to come in, inshallah, and pray and then go home in a timely fashion. Number 3 is our London family art competition is still going on, and this weekend is the last day to give your submission. There's prizes at every level, and then on June 6th we will be launching an art gallery with all the submissions and the winners. So that is something that will be great. We're hoping for a great turnout, and many dignitaries will show up, so please do support that cause. And lastly, there was someone who was supposed to be here to meet the people, but they're not here. I just realized they have left, so fourth announcement is no announcement. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.